So hello there everyone, and welcome to the second part of the latest Ascension update with me here today. I've promised you that I will sit with you with my notes, and there's quite a lot. So I'm in my elven garden with the spiral here again with the sacred fire, and I'm just feeling such a beautiful energy. As you can see, I'm not wearing much because we have a heat wave, and as much as it can be annoying sometimes with the heat, it's also very pleasant and welcome here because, as we know, well, those of us who live here in the Alps, we have long winters. So today's video will be an intense read through my notes. I'll be explaining some things as I feel called to do. Again, those of you who are watching only this part, watch the previous part first, which is about the Ascension timeline as the spiral being a choice, and that Ascension is about facts. So in this video, we're going to be going through some of these facts. There might be animals, bugs, surprises coming again. I don't know about that, but I'm going to try to go through this update as peacefully as I can. As you know, the ongoing topic for a while now, since the last few years, is the Great Hologram. The black hole reality, what this means for us. Watch 2 videos ago when I talked about the information and I gave you a drawing. I'm holding a drawing up that shows the 2 realities, the split of these 2 realities. And as you know, some souls have already chosen the split AI timeline, and most beings who are on the side of Illumined Light, we know what we're moving towards. And some beings are still somehow those that, as we like to say, God is still fighting for. There is no war in the eyes of God, but God is always fighting for the children to be free and liberated. So God works through his hands and feet. Who is that? It's all of us who are here doing the service work, the divine work, the great work, as it's called in the great divine design, divine plan of God, as the mother, which is all living life in creation. So those of you who've been working to move beyond the mind, as I've been sharing in most of my videos, because we will talk about the hologram again and the new reality and many different possibilities for ascension according to different choices of beings and their own sovereignty, is that people who've been moving beyond the mind, you know that darkness holds us through the mind. When we become very mental, strategic, when our mind is overdeveloping and growing or outgrowing over our feelings. Beings who have already reached this critical stage, their body is not in compliance with their mind. Their mind has outgrown itself, like way out of proportion in relation or ratio to their heart. So that actually also influences the vital body functions in our bodies. So people who are we're still organic in our bodies, you know, we're not plugged into an artificial synthetic web yet, although that is the plan. And I'm going to be talking some of the more sinister aspects of the plan as well, because as you know, the way we work within Illumined Light is we know and have to know the challenges of the dark, which means we need to know their plans. And that's what Illumined beings are doing. They're studying their plans and they're doing great liberation work, tactics, and reversals. So because we're still in these organic bodies, our bodies are not synthetic, but we're all feeling the elements of synthetic reality. And the way our bodies are expressing this now is they're acting out, they're falling sick or ill. And people have many, many physical challenges and issues. And I'm not talking about the kind of issues I had to go through, because I was never sick organically. I had to go through some of the most difficult fights, fighting these electrical surges of the dissolving grid, of the antichrist construct. So sorry, there's this weed here that's really tickling me. I just have to put it out a bit. It's like, it's really annoying. It's so ticklish. Anyway, I didn't set my grounds fully today. So a part of this reality, as we've talked in the previous videos, is how to detect the notions of that which makes us synthetic. And as you know, with everything, it always starts with the little things. It's the little things that are a part of our daily life, that are part of our routine self, a routine reality. You know, it's one thing to sit with the guru or listening to their satsang, and then when you go about your living reality, none of these things now matter so much anymore as to talk about the true issue and challenge that our planet and this timeline is facing at this time. Because as I've shared in the previous videos, we have beings who are completely aligned with the spiral, and those of us who are completely organic. We've claimed our sovereignty in all dimensions, realms, and densities. We are fine, and we're always going to be fine no matter what happens. Our ascension, my ascension, for example, is assured no matter what happens. But beings who still haven't done the work, that's the tricky part, right? And it's getting trickier and trickier because of the detrimental factors that they're always being pushed forth by this plan of the dark. So I'll actually begin at the beginning, which is the most sinister aspect that I was shown. I actually walked this hill this week. You know, we have this Master Valley, so it's called, and I always go there, and it's a beautiful energy there. I just feel it's one of the last few remaining places when I feel intact, and I could just gather my energy together, especially when I have difficult work or I have to do difficult work, not just myself, but mostly with people, you know. And it's not easy to be on the other side and call others from that other side, because when we were still doing the work, for example, when I was still doing this work years ago, it all felt much easier and simpler, and we didn't always know what we were preparing for. And as being the chosen one, you know, and that is who I am, the chosen one of the Christ, the hub station for this calling out of all that's organic, like the call, the reenactment, the mother hub acting on the behalf of the mother, calling all her star children starborn back to her womb. And it's not easy because some beings are just still just so entrapped. They don't know what black magic is. They don't know how to detect it in their own bodies. When you're so refined in your energy field, you're going to pick up on everything. And I usually feel this energy as burning sensations. It's like your body is literally on fire. But if you're not awake, you're not aware, you're not going to feel it. You're just going to feel shackled and entrapped. And if you're not going to do the work, you're not going to take that leap step into the new. Darkness will keep on hijacking you. And in the previous video, we've talked about that, just as a little summary and preview, right? That darkness holds you with your own lack on loopholes where integrity is lacking in your life. When you're not following the heart and the womb for the woman is the safest space, because our wombs are the state before the light, you know, like the pre-matter before light becomes eruptive and it moves through the light of the sun, right? And so how this happens is, those of us who are creation angels, such as myself, we're very rare. And because we're so attuned to how we truly create in divine birthing design of the mother, that's Illumined, which is Illumined union birthing, we create everything through our womb. So from that space, our womb is always where we begin. Like any type of work we begin, it's a consciousness. The womb is the state of the pre-matter consciousness. That is what the tantrikas are doing. So we do any kind of refinement from that space. And we hold people, events, circumstances in our womb. So imagine how it is for a creation angel to hold something in our womb for such a long time until God asks of us, you know, God asks this of us, because it's sometimes a part of a very difficult situation that can be quite a predicament even for light beings, and a part of us that when we're walking through this journey, only God knows. But people like myself, I'm not going to say people like myself, because basically there's just me and I'm not really shown much others. I'm shown there's very few beings who have galactic mastery, who are galactic beings with that central hub station mother consciousness, that they've assimilated it, brought it forth through their bodies, literally becoming the tantrikas in physical form and flesh, and holding others in their womb and bringing those who are still not in this space, that are going still through this dangerous terrain of the dark and are still not recognizing it for what it is, and we're kind of calling it out to ourselves. We're calling beings back home. It's not an easy job, I'll tell you. And when we get prophecies and visions, and sometimes when you tell people who are disbelievers, who don't know, they're not going to always believe that, because you know, in this realm, as I've often said, people are functioning according to their principle or saying, you know, I'll see it and then I'll believe it, but it's actually the opposite. Our God, our loving Father and Mother are just this, it's just this we can't access it through our brain. We can't access it through thinking and trying to rationalize through the process. This is such a purifying consciousness that only in those moments when you know yourself as love, and we know beloved love, which is the love for your counterpart, it's so pure that through this love, as I've often explained, the beloved union of two beloveds who are in sacred partnership or sacred marriage, that's a devotional, not a human codependent relationship. It's a dynamic that's of spirit. It's spirit-born, harmonious union. It's not a relationship, it's a union. Through this union we birth everything, and that's why I was always telling you that through this union I've birthed things. So now even people who talk about the hologram, who know about the inception, but they're not bringing their consciousness to this realm through the union, that's this inner union of the beloved, they're not going to be safe in this so-called knowing, because they're going to act in extremes. And I've given examples when people come to me with very psychotic ideas and pushing towards stuff that is just very, very mental. And due to that state of existence, it has the capacity to destroy rather than to create. Only with a loving union, which is, is this Vesica Pisces formation, in that union, we can birth even the difficult, challenging things through love. And when you have love, you're not going to be afraid of no antichrist, no transgression, nothing, because as even already our beloved Master Jesus, the brother of all of us here, has mentioned through his own embodiment here on the planet such a long time ago, that in this love, when all the aspects of love that are higher realms of love can be brought forth into the body, no darkness can exist in that space. And the reason why it's more difficult now is because back then, around, let's say 2,000 years ago, there was no hologram yet, but now it is, because this simply is the great play out. So before I go into today's channeling, let me remind you that those of you who are with me on Patreon, I've recently read this great perspective on the play, and it's actually God's plan of reversal, how to bring darkness into its own, like staring at its own creation right in the face. And maybe one day, if I feel inclined, I'm going to read the writing here as well. It's not as long, but during this transmission, I've seen what God has seen and foreseen, and you have to know that everything that's playing here out, so I have to start with that, with the higher perspective, to not scare anyone, because these things have to play out, because God actually, how I was seeing things as a divine prophet, God shows me with the vision that is so pure and clear, and it doesn't show me through pictures, but it's a pure knowing. God shows me, this higher perspective of what the plan was. And when I started channeling that transmission, that was a few months ago, I was outside by the water stream, I received information that Aurea and Aurea, who are like my master Elo himself presences, they were aware of the plan, and very few people or beings like those who walk with God were actually shown the entire plan. But I've seen God whispering to Aurea and Aurea the true dynamic of this plan, and it was about the great reversal. It's kind of how God will trick the devil, let's just call it like that, because in the Bible you already have, and I have never read it just to be sure, but you have connotations of this great, sorry about that, this great last battle. But it's not so much a battle, it's more like a plan. And because this victory of organic intelligence, of illumined life design versus antichrist and all that is anti-matter, all that is anti-God, that is against God, has been playing out through many different systems, or what we call stellar systems of life. But where and how it is playing out here now, it's like the last final battle. And because of this, God has to let all the elements play out. And because of this, now Earth, as I've said, will become, this will be allowed, the whole hologram and notions will be allowed. But there's something that we're not seeing that God has shown me, that I'll reveal through these writings, that is a part of higher initiatives of light and illumined light intelligences who see with the visions of God. And all they do is they act exactly how God shows them, and through their reinforcements of life force currents, they fuel the new narratives, they fuel the energies, and that's how they navigate the energies to go in a specific way. And you have to be extremely intelligent, you have to extremely know how to pay attention, and you have to be so pure in your heart, in your crown, and in your womb. All the three main portals have to be completely aligned and intact. And it's very rare to be a prophet, if I can even use that word, on all levels, to be the crown, the heart, and the womb of ascension. And Aurea has told me that that's what I am. And it's very hard, because sometimes people who are starborn or star-seeded individuals, they would often get notions of knowing because they also receive what we put there in the collective, right? But Aurea has told me that they're still here for their own training and mastery, and they're not going to always have the bigger perspective. So even with me, let's say someone comes to me and would offer me what they've received through their guidance. Guidance is not the truth. Let me remind you of that, as I've often shared with you before, that with guidance, we always get what we need in that moment to move the energy to the next level. And sometimes the guidance, even if it's of the light team, will be tricky because it needs to move us from one anchoring to the next. But the truth is always the same. It never changes with time. It is the timeless nature or construct of things beyond the construct of what we call terrestrial, and even the hologram, or whatever you may call a specific creation that's not coming as a direct origin of divine union, and that beloved union birthing in pairings, consciously creating the divine trinity, or the triple goddess design, which is the father, mother, and the child. Or if we speak about the triple goddess as the feminine, right, the crone, the mother, and the maiden, right? It's basically one and the same, just translated to specific configurations. So because of my gift of being so pure, being away from people and just being with nature and the great outdoors, and being away from mechanical things, although they're everywhere now, has given me the grant and the gift to finally fulfill my mission and be self-realized. So because, as I'm shown, there's not a lot of people who are existing in self-realized state. That's a difficult, again, matter, right now. People have specific insights when they can pierce through the veil. But usually, when I was with people, when they were in my presence and consciousness, it was easier for them to shift and see specific things by me offering them the gift of holding that space for them so they could also see. But it's a long way for one to develop their own cognition as a lumen seership, and it's not going to be right away. And because of that, my lumen team says people need to start trusting the illumined light initiatives and what we're bringing forth and what we're conveying through these messages, because these are the purest messages, most benevolent you can get, because they don't just give you the guidance, but they give you what's behind the scenes as a plan of God, and how God will turn over all of this shit, basically, all of this darkness, and their vanity in destroying organic, humanoid, and other life forms in this vast creation, in order, because they lost the ability to create. And that's the whole channeling. Maybe one day I'll read it to you here as well. Because they've lost the ability, because they went against God and how God showed them to create, right? There was this massive cycles of birth and destruction, and those beings who were always with God and stayed with God and refined and developed and refined these beautiful forms of life that we could inhabit, right, as sparks of consciousness, the souls that are products of love, of higher beings, intelligences. When they come into union and they divide, souls result and souls come about, and they're all, when they're coming from God and they're organic, the way souls are organically created, right, as sparks of the flame and the sacred flame, they're offered through unions of higher beings, and through their unions they divide aspects of their consciousness and they get souls. How darkness tries to create souls, though, is through very mechanical soul harvesting process, getting organic intelligence through them, but then pushing them through a process that makes them be more and more synthetic. So that's quite a difficult thing to understand. But remember, darkness, once it was banned from the kingdoms of the heavenly realm of creation, where creation angels dwell and they sing everything into being, these beings, the fallen ones, through the initiative of Luciferah as the main chosen one, as herself crowned, adorned one, that was basically the main fallen one, and then the legions of fallen beings who followed her initiative, all they were doing is trying to get back to the seed of life in illumined intelligence, but they couldn't, because you can't get to that seed, because you were banned from that, because you literally deflected God and you rejected God the Maker, who is the most it's not even a being, it's just the most amazing intelligence, and you can never access it. And even those of us who access it, like through our purity and our own intelligence, it's just like an aspect of God that we are, that we will feel. But there's specific there's specific moments when God shows us these visions through almost like giving us more than just us, than just our vision. And in these moments, we're acting on the behalf of God as God prophets and seers. And these visions are not tainted by imagination or imaginative mind. They're literally a product of love of God that shows us this is behind. And for me, the vision of God is the higher perspective, the highest vision of intelligence you can witness reality with. It's not getting images and imprints and symbols, but it's seeing the narrative of the higher perspective. Only highest advanced beings have that vision. I'm one of them as Aurea, as Polona, right? I had to train myself. I had to be trained through years and years to access that level. And I had to even go to the biggest darkness of transgression that actually in the end it accelerated the gift. So I'm actually grateful for everything I experienced, because the darkness I had to walk through accelerated my gift, and I'm no longer blindfolded or blindsided. Now I see fully, and I see with these higher perspective. So for, let's say, the difference between a star being who has a gift and someone will tell me, I see these pictures, or I'm getting this, I'm receiving this, or I'm hearing words. What I have is I summarize things. I have a synthesis, because they might have guidance, but they're not sure how to put that in an entire higher perspective. That's how I am. That's my gift as Aurea's directing embodiment here. And it's just been like this since after transgression, when I finally healed and set up the gateway. So the reason why I want to talk about that is because there is a plan. And with my vision and my intelligence, what God showed me directly through, Aurea being one of those who got entrusted with the details of the plan, a lot of beings did not know the details, because God still wanted them to trust God as the great maker, the great intelligence. And sometimes you can't see, because you have to develop full trust with God. And God said in that channeling, now God will finally see who's truly with God and who isn't. So basically, when you think people fall and people go and splinter off, it's a choice. It's a choice. God never said, now you all have to be with me in this way and I'm going to make you do it. That's what darkness does. God gives everyone an opportunity to choose God just by remembering your true divine heritage. If you don't want to, no one is forcing you to, and that's what free will means. The other conjured up idea of free will, that's now basically an imposture, that's not really free will, but it's what the darkness gives you and makes you think you are free, but you're not. That's not free will. That's a fallen aspect of free will, in which beings who are not claiming themselves as sovereign, they've already lost any sorts of freedom or an ability to engage in freedom of choice by choosing sovereignly, by reenacting God's gift of free will. So, my loves, in the end of that channeling, there was this beautiful witnessing that came out, that in the end, when everything plays out together perfectly, and everything that's allowed here, we have to know God allows it for a reason, because darkness has to nullify itself. That's the plan. And because of that, God will allow darkness to reenact all the steps until they're needed. So in the end, darkness will see that whatever it will do, whatever it will create, in the end, they're going to be left with nothing. That will be the greatest story ever played out and told in the vastness of this creation. But we're still in the middle of it all. And those of us who are the most faithful, loving, loyal servants of God, as that divine intelligence that surpluses everything, and it's everything and all, and plus more. We are so dedicated and we do everything, and sometimes our work is not easy, because we're going to have difficult assignments that God will say, look, this is your next assignment or a mission or whatever, and it's not always going to be just one. For me, it's not just one mission, it's a lot. But because of this, I can tell you that from the higher perspective, it's all planned, and we're not seeing this now. But this realm has been chosen to participate in this game when this cyborg-like AI consciousness meets itself. And you will see some of the reversals I'll share with you in these writings, okay? So I'm going to start with something that I received as a first impulse. When I went to that hill, I had a huge liberation day, and lots of guidance came through. So I was walking, and this insight suddenly came through my family of light, and they were showing me that the idea, the vision they're looking into as the idea of the darkness, is that eventually here in the hologram, again, we're talking about the hologram, and remember, this is not the only realm or the only world of creation. This is just one realm, and in this realm there's a specific design that is within the imprint of what needs to play out. It's sometimes so subtle in nature that because of the plan of God, not everyone will be able to see it, detect it, and read it, therefore. But they were telling me that the idea of this dark invasion is in the hologram creation, that eventually there won't even be lives anymore, like incarnations, that soul would just be plugged into, and there would be an idea of being alive, but it's not going to be a physical life like we have now, when soul needs a proper amount of sacred fire to fuel itself and to proliferate life by creating these lifetimes. So I'm going to read you what comes next. So you need the consistency of the realm's highest light prism. We talked about the prism of illumined light that through which all realms are created. And even realms are products of union. For example, me and my beloved counterpart, my spirit beloved, we have our own realm. We've created that realm through the prism of our illumined love. The illumined counterparts have the gift of God's love. That's what makes us so amazingly creative. And here what plays out is just this one aspect that's now in physical and flesh. It's such a tiny droplet of who we truly are, actually, right? So you need the consistency of the lights of the realm's light prism in order to incarnate the soul through it. Once the hologram, the great web, is fully installed and running, this cannot be an organic, which means life force animated process anymore. It becomes like a simulation of data feeding into the live stream, quote unquote, which eventually at some point fully disconnects. This was a really tough piece of information to receive for me, actually, but I was being upgraded this whole weekend. Before that, I was just pulsating and vibrating, and I knew something's up, and they're preparing me for the next stage because I couldn't move the entire weekend. I was just there on my couch. It's like, what's happening with me, right? But I was being upgraded, and I was buzzing, and it's like my whole body vibrates when I get a boostment, a next elevation stage. And afterwards, I always get a next flooding of information that's very vital to the next stages of our Illumined Mission plan. So they would always give me the next step, and then the next, and then the next, as I've already explained. But some things that I see are grand summaries of the divine plan. So the next step, which was what they were giving me now, they said, until all will be received that will fully disconnect us from the running operational program. So I've been operating this way, that through transgression, they were feeding me this information from their illumined perspective that then needed to move into my human perspective. So as they said, we will keep on doing that until all of us are fully plugged off. After that, I had an amazing experience, and it was to do with my feminine self physically towards a masculine self. Physically, I initiated the step that was very difficult for me to initiate, and like really push the energy forward and give a very detail-oriented, specific, but also challenging information to someone. And after that, I just I just collapsed, and I just ended up on the mountain beach just crying. And then we were asking for guidance, and Jesus came through, and I thought he's going to tell me something like, I told you so, you know. And we were in awe because he was actually saying, no, this is the day. He said, this is the moment of your mastery. Now you're a fully embodied master on earth, and a master of all masters, not just a master of this realm, but a master of the hologram, a master of transgression and inception. He said, because now you learned how to initiate yourself. You don't wait for anyone. You don't wait for things to crystallize. You are the agent of change consciously. Sorry, there's ants climbing on my device, so they keep distracting me. So they say this is what it means to truly be a master. You don't wait. You don't be in this enclosed space. You're always acting through these higher notions, these impulses that comes through feelings of God. And the reason why it's so difficult, and especially for the masculines in this equation of light, in this 3D realm, is so difficult to feel because we're always told not to feel. For example, when I have a release or had a release and then I cried it off, there was always the next flooding information and the next. Imagine when that gift is taken away from you and you're just like always in this shackled state, and you can't move, and you're trying to find a way out with your mind. But the master, and you remember there's this great story from Saint Germain, I don't know where I read it, how he was locked in a crystal, like his consciousness was there in prison in this crystal, and as long as he wanted to get out, nothing happened. He just remained stagnant. He did whatever he did, but it didn't work. Like in the end, he just accepted where he is, and he started feeding love into that core, and just out of the blue, he was just out, right? So we are going through these initiations here in this realm that we design for ourselves to eventually get it and to understand, again, the main principle. Remember when the Christ said, the Christ is an active principle. Every day you have to use it, no matter what type of consciousness you think you are, whether you're an angel, a star being, ancestor, I don't know, it doesn't matter. The Christ is a ruling, overarching, living principle that has to be reenacted over and over again until you're here, until your very last breath. You have to keep on moving the union through your body. So yeah, with that, you understand that freedom of that choice and the justice, the truth comes with movement of the spiral. When you're not using the spiral, which is basically what the Christ consciousness is, this higher spiral intelligence, you will remain linear, and linearity only keeps you further locked into the prison of the hologram, not the illumined light prison. So now I'm going to read you the channeling that they show me. I'm going to show you a mini drawing. Looks like this. It's basically a circle with a layer, right? So it has a thick layer around it. In the middle of the circle, there is a golden spiral, and there's many spirals emanating from it like this, okay? So they told me like this rim, right? This layer here around represents the feeding into, through the black hole, feeding into the hologram. Remember the picture I showed in 2 videos ago? And that layer in between, right, they call it the thickness of the barrier via the equation of the Antichrist. So in the middle, no matter what happens, it's the same in the drawing that I presented 2 videos ago. The great spiral of God is always there, because the illumined seed is at the core of every creation, every realm that was seeded through an organic life prism. So you can't take it away, like the darkness can take away the illumined seed of Gaia, like this terrestrial realm, nor beings being on it, like living beings. But what it can do is it can act a layering around it to make all this life fall asleep, like come to sleep and be hypnotized or comatose. Like a lot of people who can't feel anything right now, they can't move in the higher grounds and higher realms of feeling, they're literally in this comatose state. And that's why a hologram is a state in which advanced beings, when they go to sleep and we dream, we keep on waking within the dream, we keep on waking up within the hologram, and our human aspects here that are physical aspects of the self are having, as a result, these surges of our illumined light moving through the body, as eventually our DNA, when we fully a sovereign being, because there's a pathway, right? There's a first claiming of your sovereignty, but then it needs to ripple out as you're living your life. And eventually, when the whole of you is sovereign, every single cell in your organism, in your body will be sovereign, which means that your DNA is not anymore part of ancestry, lineage, your ancestors, your family lineage, whatever. It is now belonging to God, your DNA, when you claim yourself as a sovereign. And that's the only thing you actually have to do. And you have to keep on doing it. It doesn't happen with one decree and then that's it and you're done. No. Throughout your living movement of the spiral through your body, as you're weaving it through your body, each time there's going to be a new opportunity. And that's why liberation is not an event, it is a process, right? It's an act through which the Christ begins to move through your body. And in this state, you're literally calling yourself back into the organic prism of who you truly are, your own original creation angel self, and your own illumined life intelligence, okay? So it's a process, and then your DNA shifts to being God's DNA. People like me, I never get sick anymore. I don't have the flu or what people have. The frequency and the self-repairing nature of our DNA is God's. So there's not going to be a living threat anymore. The only threat is an accepted mind that believes you can't. And you belong to the devil because you don't. But devil will keep playing these tricks until you really, really wake up, and until you are free on all levels. And you can't feel the love, and you can't express your voice, and you can't express this love you have for yourself and maybe your counterpart. An aspect of the counterpart that is here, I'm not going to say your spirit counterpart, but the counterparts that are here now, as spirit show me, they're not here. They're not in divine pairings yet. There's literally no divine pairing of higher beings that is supposed to be, sorry again, these ants are terrible, that is supposed to be through the intelligence of God in union. We still have these forced unions that are of the devil, which means in a status quo reality that you are here because you create a life and it's an illusion, it's an obstruction. Because you came here to become your best match, and you came here to share that union with your highest possible match that was chosen by God to have that what we call the sacred marriage, okay? So I'm going to tell you now what my family of light Aurea was channeled here, okay, for our next process. So they show me this imaging, right? So it's going to be a little more technical at this point, but maybe some of you who are more advanced would understand it. If you don't, just feel the essence of things, because what we're doing and what they're doing now, and they're amazing beings. I cannot compare any being in this universe with their intelligence, because their intelligence is truly remarkable. The way they can create spin-offs, because they're showing you, right, the spiral and then spin-offs of the mini spirals that are shooting off. And they're showing these as people, as you're going to see when I read you the writing. And again, remember what I shared in the previous video. Ascension is facts, not stories and hopes, false hopes. So, again, their perspective is more technical, because it's still organic, but it's seen through the complexities of their work, and they maybe want you to see the way they work. So the more the spiral, right, the one in the middle spins off, which means the more spin-off frequency of the spiral you can get, which means the more people that can get into the alignment of the spiral, which is organic ascension, the better the chance for an optimal ascension experience will be, which is the only way out of the hologram. The archons, they literally call them the archon bastards, which are the great architects of the grid, made sure that the most complex equations were written and encoded into the whole program, causing an ultimate density of the barrier, right? I showed you the thickness that would hold as many light beings as possible here, held within the great container. However, we, Aurea and family, have rerun their own calculations, which we caught reflected back to us as released transgression electricity, right? Those shock waves I've talked about being for years damaging my body as I was doing this work with them, which are produced when the grid is dissolving through illumined light. That's why I had the pain as a result of this process. And now we've handed these calculations to higher councils above us to extrapolate. Those of you who don't know the term extrapolate, they use it quite a lot. Please go check it out. They use a specific configuration calculations of a let's say of an advanced model that's like an ideal, and they put it in a different situation, seeing if that will work as well. And in exchange, the higher councils, then fuel us with a new pathway and potency of life force currents that can be a match to the to the gridded reality and energy. So they're trying to find the best match of energy to be a match to that which is now in this realm gridded. The spin and ratio of the spiral emanations produced now, which are, you know, all these shooting emanations that come as the core of the spiral, which is represented by us as the Illumined core family, they're a little over 50%, they said, because, you know, they have everything monitored. While we now need to elevate that to the next level for the success of our mission. We're now pouring the gathered data, which is Earth prism reflected. So the prism of the Earth reflects to them. They receive the data and they reflect the data, like they deposit it or give it away to even higher councils of light, okay? So this gathered data is being poured through the Earth prism, right? Reflecting it into our collective realm prism. This is our lumen prism, to then extrapolate again. We're trying to find a match that would be able to lock in or sync in resonance of the reflected and the newly emanated from the prism of illumined light. So you see, they're trying to find the balance of that which is reflected from here to upwards and from them here downwards. But we also need the carriers, right? These are the mini shoot off spirals. Everyone coming into the spiral alignment acts as a carrier that would help us fulfill that aim, which are all the beings ready to receive that truth, or all the volunteer souls as well, and carry our lumen seed in their light body. So you have to carry this illumined seed in your light body. That was the plan. That's the illumined mission narrative and plan. This is not an easy assignment. Without its completion, listen to this crucial key data now. Ascension would only be available to those who are already ascended beings themselves. That's me, right? Polona, Aurea, Dawn. I'm already an ascended being. If we can achieve this completion, the possibility of ascension will be open to Starborn family as a greater potential and collective, because so far everyone is in contact with the gridded hologram prison and thus continues to their own exchange with it. So we're all living in the hologram, you know, we are having our exchanges, we feel the consequences in our lives. Only masterful ascended beings, ascension beings, Polona, Aurea, for example, as me, are not, because they, as they've showed and shared with me, have now already fully been plugged off and disengaged. So for example, if someone comes to me and starts talking about their experience with the hologram, I don't even want to talk about it anymore, because I've done the training, it's all out there, the Great Spiral work is on Patreon, anyone can do it. It's such a simple way to work with the dissolving of holograms. it's all out there, and why would I engage with something already plugged off? You see, I can't reenact, because this way I'm not helping anyone. I have to be in the position where I am, and that's why my ascending process and ascension process is so important for the whole, because I can't go back and help people from this state of being like engaged still. I have to be disengaged and now act from this space. So we, these beings, right, we carry the seed energy for others who can now choose it themselves as well. But they said, of course, this means work. Bless you all in this work. And then Aurea came forth and she said, what we do out of love. What is done is for the God above. There are no mistakes, only life. Every seed planted awakens us more within the family tree. Remember, the family tree is the most refined intelligence, because what they're doing, right, the way they extrapolate data, as I'm seeing it, as I'm witnessing it through my inner cognition, is they always compare where someone is physically on Earth as in their position in the family tree. So for example, your choices here on Earth reflect how your tree is, whether you're elevating and illuminating yourself in the family tree or not. So like they said, we're now at the 50%, but we need lots more. I think they need above 80%. I think, like they show me with the light body process, it's very much the same. Like when you get over 80%, then that's great. It's like it now begins to run on autopilot, but you have to get to that point. Yeah. So someone has now channeled a message. This was not channeled by me, but I have to super expand on this, okay? Because this channel actually made me to channel the higher perspective. This is how I am, okay? So I was in a session with someone, and they said to me that they saw the plan of the Dark Ones, and their trajectory will be imposed by their deceit timeline on Earth, which is like, because I actually heard a term, a phrase in my mind. They were telling me, that was a while ago, oh, that was during the new moon in Gemini when I was getting so much information, and I heard the Masonic lodges are closing. I kept hearing that. I'm like, what does it even mean? So I asked this person, we were in a session, and this is what they got from it. Their trajectory of the Dark Ones will be imposed by their deceit timeline on Earth, right? So it's the timeline of deceit that you can't see anything clearly, which is going to be played or put into the galactic timeline, or a galactic part, which means their distortion will go so deep, like they don't need the Masonic lodges anymore. Remember, when the dark fulfills a plan, they don't need that structure anymore. They abandon it, and they actually saw beings going out to the core of the Earth where the illumined seed is. They're now going to start aiming for the seed, and when they get to the core, they still believe they're going to get to the illumined seed, and they're going to distort everything, all the galactic roots, all the galactic information about every single soul being, every light being, all their ancestry, their original origin, their connection to God, to the Elohim family of light, to the primordial roots where all life came and how it came for it and how it originated. They're trying to cut off the soul families, that they won't be able to contact them and connect to them. Even the soul parts that are still here on Earth, the soul families that are not of Earth, they're not going to be able to contact them. And even now, when I witness some people that are difficult to work with, and you're trying to work with them, but they can't feel, and the family's like, we're right there, we're trying to move through you, and they're like, nope, I'm not budging, I'm not feeling it. It's already now like near to impossible with specific souls who have been entrenched in this for a very long time. But what they want to do is they want to cut this or annihilate this link, like indefinitely, so that the soul families won't be able to contact their counterparts here on the planet, because they would have already think, also that's a fake ascension timeline, right? That's a mental ascension timeline. They will think they've already ascended, but there will be a synthetic reality. So this is linking into my channeling that there won't be even lives anymore, right? It will be no incarnations, just a plug-in. You would think you're having a life, but it's a dream within a dream, and you can't, you know, when we have those astral dreams, when we're a hologram, and what wakes us up, these advanced beings, right, is what wakes us up is usually a strong feeling of remembrance who we are, or hearing your creation name, or something happens in the moment you just know, I have to wake up, I have to wake up. It's usually how it happens. But for these beings, they will think they've already ascended, so it will be like synthetic layer over them, and they will be in turn, in exchange, offered this reality, right? So the person was seeing like core, and then like emanations out, and the golden rim, and within that golden rim inside will be like radio waves, and they will bring the essence of distortion of the seed. But remember, they can never get to the seed and fully hijack it. That's all in my creation, channeling the story of God's grand design and God's plan to do the great reversal work. So what I was shown next, as a result, this was not my channeling in this session. I saw, this is how I function, I saw the bigger perspective here. So God will allow them to fulfill this plan. They will think they fulfilled it. They think they've hijacked it all. But listen what happened. They actually showed me this truth. Most of the soul aspects here that are incarnate, like soul aspects, they've shown me, are fragments of fragments of fragments. What illumined beings, what we use for our transference of consciousness, we use pods. It's difficult. It's not like pods you would see them in Star movies or any sort of science fiction movies. They're not physical pods. They're not metallic. They're ovoids of light. And these pods are used to carry over the consciousness or the soul consciousness or soul infusing energy to travel safely throughout the corridors or these like wormholes even, right? So they've shown me this, that in turn, God has summarized and summoned up his purest children who all are working as servants, right? And illumined beings, you are using these pods, and we have been gathered by the directive of God, and all the true divine sparks are actually within these pods. So they're in the safekeeping. When they're in the pods that are of illumined design, nothing can hijack them. But what they're doing, and I was like laughing off, because this will be probably the greatest hoax, the greatest plan. Like the darkness thinks that they're gonna do the greatest deception story ever told, and then as a turnover, they're gonna be the ones that are gonna be hoaxed into infinity. So what they're actually giving them is, illumined beings gave them replicas. They were prepared for the harvesting, right? Because this is the main goal, harvest the soul essences, you know, and use fragments to embed them in the synthetic grid hologram consciousness. But they're actually going to give them, and they're giving them replicas. So when the time of the harvesting for them comes, they're actually only going to get replicas prepared for the harvesting that the dark has planned. That will be the part of this great reversal. But the important souls, that are whole souls, not the fragments of the fragments that basically just carry the imprint of the memory of that soul, but it's not the light seed, the light essence of the soul. And they said the important souls are already safe and continue to be. So yeah, again, remember, in this realm, if you haven't started doing any work, you have to, every day when you wake up, anchor yourself first. Anchor yourself to the lumen core, the lumen seed of this planet. Anchor yourself to the lumen prism of your creation self. Even if you have the slightest idea what that is, it doesn't matter, because you're already sending out your own conscious intention that this is to be so, because that's how you operate through Christ. Every day affirm to yourself, I am the Christ, I am the Christ, I serve God, I serve the Immaculate Life, okay? You need to claim yourself as the beloved God I am, and your beloved counterpart, right? And this is how you heal your DNA, by claiming yourself as a sovereign being, remember, in all dimensions, realms, and densities. In all your vessels through which your consciousness of the light seed, the light being that you are, has been traveling and moving through. And perhaps some of these aspects are more higher vibrating than this one on earth, so call them back, and these aspects will, by claiming your sovereignty, they will assist you. So instead of this discombobulated DNA, it's what the darkness does, right? It can annihilate, it can ruin the God's DNA. So it scrambles it, it puts it in this locked position. And you're so discombobulated that you no longer know who you are. You know, someone recently said this question to me, like, yeah, whoever I am anyway. And this is how you know you're not in the truth. You have the brain fog, right? You're in veiled position. And also something very important to know, that every day you have to use this, because again, this seer, she shared with me how she had this process she went through, and it was like Lucifer, right? This great first fallen creation angel claimed her. She was like, this child's mine, and she had like a rat stamping on her, like a mark, right? And the mark of the beast we mentioned so often here is not just this chip or a vaccine or injection or whatever goes into you. It's a spirit thing too. It's like Lucifer's mark over every single organic consciousness that has source or God's intelligence in it. So mark of the beast is a thing that bypasses just the physical. The physical, what we call mark of the beast, it's just a physical manifestation of that spirit born annihilation, you know, and destruction and inception. So what the darkness does, right, through all of that, it tries to claim your sovereignty of rights, the way we create as creation angels. It tries to put it in an archonic grid, the way archons create, which is synthetic, it's mental, it's logical. If you're still so much in your logic and using your brain as logic, just please do whatever you can to get yourself out of there. For a while, just stop. If nothing else, stop receiving content. Just stop feeding yourself information. Just for a while, stop. Maybe just my videos, but even then, you know, take a break. Just go somewhere in a nature retreat. Be with nature, be with plants, be with animals. Just be with that which is organic. And this being told me they saw in a dream or in a vision. They were moving through the hologram and they were seeing the plans of the dark, how they're trying also to make animals be synthetic, you know, in their consciousness, because the animals are what contributes to the organic nature of this grid. And that's why, you know, they're cutting down so many trees and killing off especially most important animals. Which animals, think about it, are being the most cleansed out of the system? Whales, dolphins, elk, you know, like here. It's amazing how much of them, they're now ordered, they're instructed to kill off like 1,000 minimum per year. I think that the society, you know, like for huntership, they have like this decree. And where are these orders coming from? Do you think they're coming from the light? No. And always these animals that carry the most divine energy, and they're gritting the organic intelligence. So kill them off, you know, discombobulate the people, get them in a mental looping state, let them be totally splintered off and completely fragmented from their true selves. Let them not think about the beloved. Let them think the beloved is an illusion. Let them think true love doesn't exist. Let them think nothing is even real. When you're so much in annihilation and that constant doubt in life, when you can't even get one droplet of joy anymore, that's when you know you've fallen for the tricks, you know? And that's when you're the most susceptible to the dark. I know I talk about difficult things, but we all have to go through the stage to be on the other side. And remember, the family of light needs us. I don't know, there's not a lot of people yet still watching my videos, but those of you who do, please, you're the ones called. Don't just watch and then pretend you never heard that. Make the important decision. Follow through the steps. Do the spiral work. Do the tantrika anchoring work. Do the sacred orgasm practices. All these things that are reinvigorating, revitalizing our life force through the body, making us act with the statement, we are organic beings, we are children of God. God loves us. God is the infinite, eternal intelligence that always comes back to itself, and God always comes for its children. So when Lucifer tries to claim you as her child, right, that's the seal of the Christ, the seal of the Antichrist, sorry. But the seal of the Christ instantly reverses it when you simply say, I am the Christ. I know I'm the child of God, and I'll do anything to really, really claim my sovereignty and my rights as an organic being. And continue the proliferation of light that is my own lasting illumined legacy. Not just here on this planet, but in spirit. Because, you know, planetary things they're not permanent. Everything in 3D is not lasting, and it changes form constantly. But if your spirit can be hijacked, if your light being intelligence is hijacked, then bye-bye sovereignty, bye-bye your freedom of choosing. And you know, living as a spiral, as truly as how God sees us as these spirals. So it's very important, and this is what we're doing now. I'm doing a few things. I'm going back to my tantric practices, the birthing and holding the space of the wasp. I really don't like this animal. It reminds me of Lucifer. Like the bee is divine, wasp is Lucifer. Anyway, so the birthing would be of the mother and the illumined rebirth. I've talked about this in the previous videos, how important this is. I'm trying to hold this space for as many beings as possible, but remember, they need to come and step up in their own work. My family of light always tells me, if they don't do their part, we can't do anything. There's going to be a dead null point from there on. So you have to know that to be a sovereign ascending being is ultimately a choice. And then every day will bring you a new choice to align, and a new one, and a new one, and a new one. That's what the spiral is. You go like this. Round and around and upwards you go, and upwards. It's the ladder of the spirit, the ladder of the Christ. And it's not archaic in terms that it's also archonic. All things that are archaic are archonic, which means everything that's just old and stagnating and dogmatic, and there's levels you need to achieve, because if you don't get, you know, like in creation, yes, there's levels. We, as beings, we hold different levels of our consciousness and our advancements, yes. Not all beings are equally advanced. Even when you're the Christ, not all beings who are of the Christ lineage will be equally advanced. We continue to proliferate with life, and the more you're opening up, the more advanced you will become, the more you will have an opportunity, a gift to serve God, but also great responsibility. So, it's not always a good thing, but it is, you know, it is. But what I'm saying is, like, your legacy begins with each moment, like every day. You don't just wake up to breathe and unconsciously start your day. You have to start living a conscious life. Everything you do, don't be afraid of making choices. Like, people are so afraid. What if I choose this and that? Well, finally choose yourself. And I've said many times, we're running out of time, because things will go in the way they need to go, and whoever will not be with God will just, you know, it's not going to be good. So anyway, black magic again is real. They want to mention it again. Transgression is decreasing the ability of the body to synchronize with itself and that which is of God, which is divine and God's DNA. So it starts to deteriorate and get sicker and sicker. And black magic literally doesn't just put a spell over the body mentally, but eventually, because the mind is hypnotized and it's in this comatose state, and you can never make a choice, you never see reality clearly, and you're always in the same positions. You have not moved your entire life, you're in the same position. It's usually signs of black magic, and if people don't want to address it, even we can help them. We can do great work with anyone, but they have to be willing, right? Remember, God helps those who are willing to help themselves. So the great plan is, again, God will let the dark go along with all of their plans, and only in the end they will be reversed to fail completely and witness the fruit of their own wickedness and defiance. The last thing I want to talk about here, it really is the last, is the different levels of who will ascend and how this ascension will look like for different beings. This is also a co-creation with my beloved master, fellow master, Jesus the Christ. So there is one level of what we already know, ascension at death, right? So ascension when you die and you don't have to come back and reincarnate within this hologram. He said beings who can literally, you know, will choose to ascend at death, which means the body just fails and it's your time to go. All patterns will need to be cleared, but not just patterns, right? Also all the transgression, inception, and waking up from the veils of illusion, because you're clear. Because when you go, you're going to need to be clear. Otherwise, something like a parasite comes and wants to claim you. So it will unconsciously leaving your body, like what a physical ascension is, what I've talked about a few videos ago. Only masters can do that. People who will master themselves in this lifetime, they will have an opportunity to finally see how it is to leave your body at will, which means consciously transcend the limitations, and eventually even to think, well, I can go only when my body dies off and it goes. You go when you want to go, and you're free to choose to when you want to go. That's physical, organic ascension, right? And the third level is those who will move. They will move to the ascension spiral. It will be heavy, because a lot of these, as I've said, were in the between zone. They were in the gray zone for a very long time. And when the time comes, not all of them will do all of their clearing, because it takes a while. You know, my mother was clearing her patterns all her life. Now she's a little over 60, and she's finally existing in a state of a conscious master. Her mastery is different than mine. It comes from being on earth. She was on earth a very, very long time. And sometimes she doubts this, and I always tell her, no, your mastery is just different than mine. It doesn't matter where you master yourself, like somewhere galactically or here. It's all within, basically when we say galactic, it's, you know, we're all, even Earth is in this galaxy. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter. It's the result, right? And it's different mastery holding within ourselves and as beings and our angelic selves and our creation womb. It's a different mastery, but it's still mastery. So those who won't be able to do this work because they have not healed themselves in transgression yet, they will be moved to the spiral, but their journey will like just begin. So they won't ascend yet. This is what I was shown. Because they will have not yet done the inner ascending work. So Jesus also said to my mother, would it be fair for someone who hasn't done anything to be equal unto you? It's just how the ruling principles of life are. Like everything has its structure, right? And its refinement. So they will have not yet done the inner ascending work, but they will have, for example, most of these would have 1 to 3 lifetimes more to live. But what they've shown me, this is what made me really happy and excited. It won't be in the hologram, they said, but it will be another 3D-like planet realm. They literally call them not planets, they call them realms. But this is the most beautiful information I receive. And that realm was prepared by God for those who are on that timeline. That world, that realm now has 0 of this, what makes the being unable to evolve further, because there's so much hijacking here. And that world is therefore a gift from God, and it is hidden from the darkness. It is hidden in plain sight, and they don't know about it. Darkness doesn't know about it. So this 3D realm here within the hologram was chosen for the great reversal work and plan. I hope one day I can read that out. If not, I'll be on Patreon. It is there. And there's many examples that I'm seeing through right now with different beings I'm connected to. And through them, I'm seeing the different plan of unfolding for each and every one of them and what they're choosing. But what we're doing now is we're trying to get the last bit of alignment with the darkness, with these beings who are members of our soul family, and align them with the true spiral journey. So we need to get every single one of them on the spiral trajectory, right? And those who are not, we have to tell them, look, you're not there. Keep on moving. Make that leap jump. And even with specific examples like Aurea just told us recently, now let's say it's for a specific being and they said we can only wait for their next leap jump. We can't do anything now, because only that can truly be the intelligence of each being, them passing their own initiation. But remember, we as beings in this vast creation that is of God, that is all loving presence of God, as not just the Father but the Mother, is literally, we are choosing these initiations to eventually remember who we are and to train ourselves and to get these skills that eventually we use these skills to serve the divine further. But what darkness does, it tries to intervene on their own behalf, to steal away these gifts, to plug their own AI consciousness into them, to not just filter them out of you, and to constantly create a notion of constant self-doubt, that you're always doubting yourself, that you're always doubting the plan, that you're even doubting God. Let's say someone received a beautiful gift, and in the end, darkness comes again, and each time they have a notion of self-loathing, you know, guilt and shame, blame. Those are all lowest emotions through which darkness can come. And it will tell you again, it's all a make-believe that never existed. So in the end, they're going to even start doubting that. And it goes on in waves and in cycles and looping. So the big revelation for Ascension is everyone now needs to do their work from the level where they are. Remember, everyone, no matter how small you would feel yourself to be, like you don't play any vital role here. Everyone now is so crucially important, because remember, there's a big spiral of all Illumined beings in the middle, but there needs to be the proper spin-off, right, engagement. And they said we need people, we need presences that will carry within their light bodies our illumined seed of life principle, which is based on Illumined union. And here in this last level, I want to mention that perhaps in the next video segment, when the time comes, I want to speak more about the beloved. So far, I have many Illumined union readings, transmissions on Patreon, as a result of everything the Mother has been talking about, this beloved union and why it is so important. For now, as I physically witness, and the people I know, there's very few people, I'll tell you honestly, that feel the importance of this love. And this path of the sacred feminine being here to heal the fallen masculine is so difficult, and it is such a beautiful path. And I want to talk about this maybe next. I'll see how it goes and maybe bring some of Mother's messages through. But so far I'll have another journey of this to share about the mystery and mastery of love. It will be on Patreon as always, as all my beloved transmissions are. But for now, I just want to wish you blessings and good luck on this path, because you know, all the masters say, well, may you pass your every test. That's what I always say. So may you continuously do that and see that every day is a new challenge, an opportunity to wake up further from the hologram. And don't be attached to people who have already chosen the AI. You know, people who are very conscious, they do get messages always through the organic prism of life. They're told, you know, drop this person. They've chosen this timeline. Let them go. Let them be. They've chosen it. No one is enforcing it. But you have to now know that people who are in this timeline, when you're with them, when you're plugged physically, if not even sexually with them, into them, that you're going to be used, they're going to be used for you to be plugged into that system as well. So in the end, that leap jump, as I always say, is also connected with that cutting that cord and giving darkness no chance to stand the test of its own time. That you stand the test and pass your every initiation, which I hope you will. So as always, I'm greeting you with so much love. Be intelligent. Keep pouring out the wisdom every day, because it doesn't just come through those of us who are the illumined beings and masters, but it's there within everyone who's a child of God. Remember there. And I'm just here as a loving servant, reminder, and the one who pulls the strings further along within our great divine plan. But everyone now, when they remember the true organic self, their own divine self, their angelic self, becomes a vital part. They become like a light sparking off on the ascension map, and each one is then becoming their own trailblazing agent of change. That is the spiral of ascension and illumined union. So thank you for watching. Again, it's been a lot. I know it takes some time, downtime, process it all, and I'll be with you when I can. Until the next time I have to prepare my Patreon monthly content, and I'll be seeing you when I do. So as always, so much love, wisdom, and power. Take care. Blessings to all. Welcome into